Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So recently, I saw this thread on Twitter where it was talking about, well, this woman, she calls herself like goth housewife or something. And if you know my past, I was kind of very goth in a way. I have the ability to be able to be nihilistic and cynical and do very dark poetry, and I like watching videos where morticians are interviewed and visiting cemeteries. I have a very death-oriented mind in a kind of Edgar Allan Poe-esque type of way. And this woman mentioned how she doesn't want her husband to remarry when she dies. She dies before him. Regardless of how young he is, he should never remarry. And I pointed out that this is very selfish, because you're dead, bugs are eating your eyes, you're rotting, like your flesh is rotting, you stink. You're not in this dimension anymore. And you think you have a right to demand that a man wallow in misery, loneliness, and everything like that because you told him he had to be alone. Imagine if he obeyed you and he just is stuck watching people on a screen and stuck with his hand. This is very bizarre behavior. Very bizarre behavior. The fact that a woman typed this out and didn't see herself as evil really surprised me. Because once to death do you part, right? Supposedly. For whatever faith she actually is. When your spouse has died, sure, you can pretend to wear black every day and say you're never gonna want to have a human touch you again or whatever, but you remarry, there's nothing wrong with that. The person has returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not evil or bad if you go and find someone else as a companion. So I was examining this selfishness and jealousy, and I thought about the beauty of Islam in a very unique way. Because the Huri al-Ain, I don't really know how to pronounce it really well, but the women of paradise will be given to men. Men can have multiple wives on earth. And they can also have concubines. If you look at this actually strengthens this sort of insane obsession with the male phallus, because you have to break this clingy, claw-like nature that you would have with your man, sort of like an octopus on his face, just like you don't get to be his puppet master. You can receive love from him, get children from him, but you cannot consume him. You cannot just vampirize all his energy and take over his brain to where if you disappeared, he would walk in the woods and lament his life and unalive himself in order to reunite with you, right? And as we know, unaliving yourself is haram in Islam. But you get my point here. It is actually quite evil to want a man to not be able to move on from you. Really examine this. A woman who says like, oh, on my deathbed, I'm gonna be worried about my man moving on and visiting my grave, instead of, I hope I'm gonna be judged in a way that allows me to go to paradise. Or her children. And in paradise, I'm not sure if it's like a man can just reject all the other female type creations of Huri al-Ain, and I'm not sure if he can just push them all away and just have you. But to demand he give up that reward just for you, there's something about you in that situation, isn't it? And it can seem unfair at first, right? Because you're like, oh, it's just a big celebration for men. Men are rewarded with earthly pleasure and eternal pleasure. But I'd argue that some women, as they age, they actually become less interested in intimacy, more focused on family, and they can actually become like celibate nuns if they wanted. And it doesn't pain them as much as it does men. Which is, I think, why you see so many women who, after they've been married for 15, 20 years, they're not as hot and bothered as they were when they were newlyweds. Things kind of get monotonous, stale, predictable, and calmer, right? And the fact that we women go through menopause and like our whole body just changes. We're just different than men, and that's okay. But I just found it to be this sort of strangeness because you're a corpse. And she was like, I'm gonna come back and haunt him. Now, in Islam, I don't think we say that that's possible. But the fact that a woman would want to haunt a man if he replaced her after she is the playground of bugs and worms and maggots and she's 6 feet under the soil is completely selfish. Imagine if that was possible, you wouldn't be exploring the beauties of Jannah, traveling to the distances of Antarctica, deep into the ocean. You would be bothering your former husband while he's trying to enjoy his life. And do you think you're the good one here? Do you see what I'm kind of getting at? That's actually very witchy and quite demonic. And that isn't something that shows how good and valuable you are. And a lot of the women were saying, oh, what are you going to have? Sister wives in paradise? That's crazy. He should only have you in this world and in the hereafter for eternity, just you. And it's like, this is a strong desire of the female mind to kind of possess and master a man's soul in the palm of their hand to where he can't escape. And I find that to be very unsettling because that actually makes you have a lower self-esteem, more prone to craziness, stalker mentality, and you're attaching yourself too much to the man. You actually become more powerful the less you care. You're unbothered. Doesn't mean you have an open marriage and you're being a hedonistic liberal and you're swapping partners. No. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that, like in Islam, for example, if he has a second, third, fourth wife, she's pious, she's clean, she got no STD, she's giving him kids, you're provided for, they're provided for, you don't cause each other problems, you're just chilling. You have your kids, life is good, and you're more free, and he's not gonna just abandon you. He pays the bills, he's a provider. It's a pretty cool setup. Really is a benefit because you're taken care of. But if you think that even after you're dead, you should still possess the mind of that man, that seems just really wicked. I think it's more powerful to be able to have a man who you're not at his heels ankle biting. You're not his shadow. You're not so needy and clingy. You're not a leech on his back. Because I think there comes a point where some men want some space to breathe. You know, if you're constantly texting them, smothering them, never giving them space, constantly demanding to be around them, a little bit of distance does the heart good. And jealousy in women can be for good things, like if there's a dirty, nasty type of chick, and you're protective over your man because you see that woman is inferior, she's going to cause drama, she's a threat to the stability of the family and his health, she'll bring chaos into the family. That's a natural protective jealousy. But if the woman is decent, and it's hard to have these sessions of management of one's feelings, then you're going to have a more difficult time having sanity. Because a lot of women assume if he's obsessed with you, he lets you control him, that he will never have any desire for any other woman. But his eyes still perceive beauty. And they'll still perceive what's around them. And his heart and his body will still desire someone else. So these occultists, these fake type of goth/Christian hybrids, claiming that they'll haunt their husbands if they get remarried or date someone else, and they feel like this means like they're so spiritual and they're so valuable and they're so high value. It's like, no, you are the epitome of wicked selfishness. Just really sit back and examine how, if it was possible, which I don't think it is, but imagine you endured your wife, you did what you could, she had a freak accident, maybe she died at the age of 40, you are 45, you get remarried to another woman, and your evil wife decides to turn in the hereafter and become this just horrific demon possessing your house, and chases away your new bride, and causes your life to be hell. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, you're not, because you didn't keep the promise of never remarrying after. That's crazy to me. I think if you are a mature, wise woman, you let go of your man. Your man is not the center of your existence. Even your children will fly the nest and be busy about their lives. It's you and Allah, you and your children, and your man is a companion in this life, and who knows if you'll be with him in the hereafter. But if his soul desires those huri alain, your jealousy doesn't get to trump his desire, I don't think. And it is painful, but I think in life we have to endure some type of discomfort. Things cannot always go our way. And our discomfort could be remedied, obviously, in paradise with something else to where we don't even feel that. And who knows if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes out that jealousy from our entire consciousness, to where we're not even capable of feeling that or even seeing that, right? If that veil of jealousy will be lifted, like we won't have it anymore. And so women who sit around and cackle and share stories about how they would haunt their man, I would call that a huge red flag, and that would show that that woman is a dangerous, narcissistic psychopath. And I don't use those terms lightly. They get overused a lot. But if I have one of my brothers and I hear his woman talking like that, like, oh my gosh, I would totally haunt him if he got remarried after I died, I'd be like, wow. This woman feels very entitled. Her ego is huge. She thinks she's like the bee's knees. Wow. Have a little bit of humility. The fact that a woman would openly say she would rather you be sad, miserable, and alone than her bearing the thought of you sharing a bed with another woman shows she's actually immature. Because women have to have a level of maturity to where you know a male's behavior isn't always indicative of your value as a human being, right? You can forgive them, but you have to understand their male nature and your female nature. And that's why I think Islam helps women to get over possessive jealousy that leads to murders and bizarreness and danger and black magic. It allows women to recognize you have no power to stop your man from having this type of new female creation in paradise. And in the Quran, those women are described with beautiful breasts and, very alluring, right? So think about it. And they've never been touched by any man or genie. We'll be purified, no doubt. Things will be great for us, I believe, because it's paradise. Come on. But it's to let you know, I think, as a woman, that you're not the center of the universe. A man is not living on his knees in order to be your chihuahua on a leash. And it's a strange habit we have as women, to where we want to have our stag in the stable. We want to have the lion in his cage and feel safe at night, that we won't be betrayed. But at a certain point, I think if you really want to be free of male dominance, you actually have to let men go. You respect them, you honor them, you take care of them, you hope for the best, you trust in Allah, you give your heart only to Allah, you love your children, you really want him to treat you well and you treat him well, but at the end of the day, you know he has the right to have other wives. And in paradise, he's going to have his right to those different female creations. So here on this earth and in the hereafter, you are not going to be the only one. If he chooses it, okay. But don't think if he doesn't choose you that you're somehow not a unique creation. You're not lovable. Like it's amazing just how freeing Islam really makes it. Because women, we can be competitive with each other. We can think, oh, she has this feature and she has that feature, so I must not be very valuable. But in the end, it's so important to pull back how much a man is able to disturb your emotional well-being. If you're in the grave, if it was possible, and you're upset, imagine being dead and upset that he moved on with his life. You're the epitome of a loser. You're the epitome of someone who has a wasted death and had a wasted life. Think of being in an entirely different dimension, and you'd want to occupy your time with stalking your husband and getting furious. It's really just sick. Really sick. And then those women will sprinkle in some like gothness, and then when you speak truly like Edgar Allan Poe with them, they're like, oh, you're so mean, you're so blunt, but it's the truth. Really think about, you're being embalmed on a table. You're being carried to be put in the dirt. And you want your husband to be shivering in fear that you're going to come back and hurt him if he goes now and takes his options with a beautiful, fertile neighbor woman. You see what I'm saying? That is pretty wicked. I don't look down upon a woman whose husband moves on after death. How soon after, well, you know, that's pretty intense. But if a woman was 25 years old, she married a soldier, he goes and he dies in war, does she not want the opportunity to get remarried and have children? You're gonna wear black every day and be a widow and never move on with life? You mourn? You have your Ida waiting period. Make sure you ain't pregnant, right? Before you get remarried. And you move on. Because to Allah we all return. You cannot just keep on like gloomy, you know, shave your head and rip off your clothes and run around in the woods and be insane. You bear that burden, but you let go of that person. They're gone. And if you got dementia, you would literally forget them. It was fascinating seeing my grandpa's mom. She died at 99 or 100 years old. She died recently. She had dementia, full-blown dementia. She didn't even know her kids. She did not even remember her husband. Okay? Examine that. There's really something interesting about that. You won't even know sometimes who you are as a person. Your husband can move on without you. If a woman gets mental illness, she becomes bizarre and ends up in an asylum, and her husband remarries, he's okay to do that. But it's just fascinating looking at my fellow women talk in such a way that I find to be utterly repulsive. Utterly repulsive. Because you're not powerful by threatening spiritual warfare against a man you claim to love. No. You don't have to tell him, go and sleep with every woman in the town. That's haram. But you don't have a right to tell him what to do after you die. You are dead and you have no authority, no ability to punish him in that way. And it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what he gets when you die. And if he's 70 and you die, and there's a woman who's 65, and they get married and they just want to be companions in their old age, fine. It's these romance movies as well that are to blame, where they've put in our heads that the sign of true love is a man who can't live without you. When we don't question women, is it healthy for you not to be able to live without your man? You've put all your mental power, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your identity in the hands of a man. That's not smart. You have to have a level of distance between you. He can move on, you can move on, respect each other, do your best, but after death, you can honor them, think about them, remain alone if you can, but never try to put that type of curse upon someone who you claim to love, because love doesn't demand an evil punishment if they find love again. Letting something go is a good thing. If I had the most beautiful Clydesdale horse, Clydesdale horses are my favorite. Let's say I go broke. I take that horse out and there's all this land where there's wild Mustangs and the horse is fully capable of being able to get water and grass on its own. And I'm like, I don't really have money, so I gotta let you go now. I can't afford whatever. And I just let that horse go. You just go on. Go out there and be free. Right? You just have to let things go sometimes. You cannot call yourself a good person and demand that your man lie to you while you're both alive, doing pillow talk. Honey, would you ever get remarried after me? Would you think about me every day? Oh, honey, you wouldn't get remarried, would you? You could totally not move on after me. Oh, no, baby, I would never. His smart man will have to lie. Because if you tell her the truth, she's just going to make her life a nightmare for about 2 weeks because she's going to be pissed off. So you're just asking a man to lie to you. And you can pretend that a man's like, sure, I would never move on. A beautiful woman can come who has a great heart and can be better than you. Why shouldn't he go with that? It's not good for people to be alone if there's an option where they can have a companion. If they decide, you know what, I just don't want the headache, or there's no one around me, okay, but it was their choice. Choice is key. So I think Islam really pushes us women to become more reserved, more resilient, and less in the control of rapacious, vitriolic jealousy. Really is fascinating when I think about it, because it just made me realize how if I'm about to die, the two things I'm thinking about are my children and fearing Allah. I'm not at all gonna care what anyone else is doing in this world. So my children, will they be safe? Will I ever see them again? I hope they're gonna be well. And here I come. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have mercy on my soul. That's more important. It just shows the low level of thinking. Let me know what you think. It's probably going to make a lot of women angry, but they probably won't even watch the full video. So, oh well. But Let me know what you think. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.